All right, welcome to the show. We have Viral Shah today. He is the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Databutton. Very excited to jump in and learn about your experience and your story. We're going to be diving into the rise of AI agents and hopefully have a fun conversation about potential use cases and ultimately how Databutton is changing the game for someone like me, a non-technical user and an entrepreneur. So, Viral, thanks so much for coming and joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I'm the Chief Product Officer of Databutton. I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised. Got a mechanical engineering degree from University of Illinois. Found out early that I wasn't really that interested in doing mechanical engineering work from my internships, and moved into software really early. So I went straight into Microsoft when I graduated from the University of Illinois, and learned everything that I know now about at least like the technical side of software. Didn't know a single thing about what an API was, or kind of what backends were, or all sorts of kind of technical jargon. I hadn't really coded much in my life, and learned a ton on the job. And in 2013, I moved to Oslo, Norway, with Microsoft to build an AI product in the Office suite. Kind of the first AI product for productivity that Microsoft released, called Delve. And that was a really fun experience. I got to kind of dive into AI for productivity and build Satya Nadella's favorite AI app. And then after that, I ran a design agency, self-taught designer. And yeah, year and a half as head of product at a company called Cognite, and then I started Databutton. So it's kind of this long journey to get to founding this amazing business that we're building now.
Yeah, very cool. Do you feel like, so you started out in mechanical engineering. Do you feel like that degree helped you, in any way, shape, or form from a product perspective, technology background,
That's
anything?
that's a pretty funny question. I mean, like, I would say that in many ways, like, I'm a traditional second generation American with Indian parents, going to engineering or going to medicine a lot of the time, and I think that was kind of like a lot of the reasoning. And I love the coursework, but I think what you learn in engineering is problem solving skills.
Mhm.
And like at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing. And then how you apply them and what you apply them to is dependent on what you end up doing, right? And one of the courses that I took my senior year was called Human Factors, which is really the study and discipline around kind of the intersection of psychology and design. So you kind of think about how people think and how you design tools and software for them based on kind of actual cognitive psychology. And that's a huge field that is now kind of in the software world kind of turned into what UX design is. So I
Yeah.
think like that was a big factor in kind of my interest in software and in tech in general.
Yeah, that seems like a huge, line through from a product perspective and
For
super
sure.
beneficial. That's great. So, you jumped over to Microsoft, or you started at Microsoft. Where did you start in Oslo, or where did you begin?
No, I moved to Seattle in nine, so I got a job at Microsoft. I didn't really necessarily expect to end up at Microsoft, but when I was applying for jobs, we were in kind of the biggest global recession that we'd seen in a really long time, 2008.
Yeah.
And so all plans were kind of out the window, and really just trying to find the kind of the intersection of where my passion lies, where I can make the biggest impact, and who would have me, to be totally honest with you. And
Yeah.
Microsoft fit the bill, and I find myself super lucky to have kind of ended up in such a tremendous place. So just consider myself lucky, to be honest, to kind of
Yeah.
end up in the tech world and at Microsoft at the time.
What are some of the biggest takeaways you have from your time at Microsoft?
I think that, like, at least from a personal point of view, I learned a lot. Like I mentioned, I learned everything I know about building software technology, and I learned a lot on the design side as well, especially when I was in Oslo building kind of a whole new product. I learned a lot about user research, about how to kind of work with users, learn about how they think, through that process. And I would say that, kind of being deep in the enterprise stack. So like you're building software in Office 365, talking to both IT, kind of the buyer, but also talking to the end users
Hmm.
who are kind of the knowledge workers, as the term is used a lot in Microsoft, the ones that are sitting in front of the computers, kind of using the software every day, and kind of you see the divide between those things. So kind of learning about enterprise software, how it's bought versus how it's used, how value is prescribed to that entire space. So a lot of learnings related to that, because when you're a college student and you just kind of use software, you're only really familiar with consumer things, right? It's kind of seeing and having visibility into how that entire process works is actually super, super useful when you're building business later too.
Yeah, yeah. So then when the opportunity to move to Oslo came up, was that ever in your mind? How did that come
No,
about? You know?
no, I think the story is really, you'll see kind of maybe a through line in the sense that it's not everything is plan based. I'm a very gut feel kind of person, and I care about learning. So it's kind of like, okay, gut feel, learning. The opportunity was move to Oslo for 2 years, build a completely new product, learn, live in Europe for a while, kind of grow personally, and then see where the next step is after that. And it turned out the next step after that was just staying in Oslo for way longer than 2 years.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
What product were you brought over to work on?
Yeah, so Microsoft had bought this company called Fast Search and Transfer in 2008, specialists in enterprise search. And that team kind of had built up a lot of an intelligence layer in Office. So Office 365, you have a lot of workloads, you have a lot of applications. So you have Outlook, you have your productivity tools, you have Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. And then you have SharePoint, which is kind of team collaboration workspace. And all of these things also have a server side where data is stored, product usage information is stored, etc. So when you build a search layer across that whole stack, you also learn a lot about kind of the information itself and how people are using it. And we had a tremendous opportunity to kind of build that intelligence layer and actually build an experience on top of that. That product ended up being called Delve, which was more of a predictive, proactive AI experience on top of Office that would bring you documents at your fingertips when you needed them, give you more interesting kind of ways of searching and parsing and traversing through information. And so we built that for 2 years. A lot of that ended up actually being, I guess, how would you call it? Like, it was kind of turned into parts and moved into different workloads, because in reality, it made more sense for a lot of that intelligence to live where kind of the people already are, right? So it's like
Yeah,
when you're in Word, it makes more sense to have some of that information inside of Word as opposed to kind of going to some other place. Or
yeah.
when you're in Outlook, it makes sense to have that kind of intelligence and information in Outlook. And now that team is working on what is now called Office Copilots.
Got it. Yeah, totally. Very cool. A lot of lessons learned, I'm sure. And so, how did that experience take you into your next opportunity and ultimately get you to Databutton?
Yeah, so I think two things after Microsoft. The first one was that I kind of just wanted to be more hands-on. So I was a product manager. I had a team, working with a group of 15 developers, bunch of designers, bunch of PMs, and I just wanted to kind of hone craft a little bit. So I left Microsoft, started a design agency, and taught myself design, UX design,
Nice.
like actually like working in tools like Sketch at the time, then Figma, working in Webflow, building websites, doing actual client project work. And I think that was for me really important to kind of um, kind of put in the hours and like learn an actual craft for
Yeah.
a while.
Did you have a
Um,
niche specific focus for your agency?
Mostly like, so we branded as a digital product team,
Yep.
but when we worked with a lot of kind of bigger corporates in Oslo, that positioning didn't really make any sense
Mm.
for them, right? Like they're kind of used to hiring ad agencies, or they're used to hire, or marketing agencies, or used to hiring design agencies. So I think you just have to kind of fit one of those categories that they're kind of used to already hiring from. But we did a lot of these more kind of net new like business and product ideas for for these bigger clients. And then after that, that was really cool, but I think the level of ownership that you feel when you're kind of an external party to a business is just extremely minimal. You can do all
Hmm.
this work and then bureaucracy inside of a company will be like, yeah, we're not gonna execute on that.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of get back into that and also work with really like a lot of the best people. I think that was one of the big benefits of working at Microsoft. You work with really the best people in the world. And so I joined a company based in Oslo called Cognite, a leading product there. And Cognite had done a tremendous job at hiring just really, really, really good people. So secret side quest, I would say, when joining Cognite was to find some future co-founders
Yeah.
and potentially start something.
That's awesome.
And then I did. And, we started Databutton in September 2021.
So what was it? What was the aha moment that led to Databutton? Was it sitting around the campfire? What, where did this come up? What happened?
I think a couple of things. You know, when I joined Cognite, it was already 200 people, and then it was just growing really fast. So by the time three of us left, it was 700 people, and
Rapid growth?
rapid growth, and also kind of the need for more kind of operators and executives was more important as opposed to builders. So I think the three of us really felt like, okay, we want to go and build something. And also myself and my two co-founders, we just really had, I don't know, at least my co-founder Tigger says, we met each other, we fell in love, and we wanted to work together, right? And I think at that is probably in reality kind of the core of it, is that we just really love working together. And that's also part of why I started my agency. It was because I really loved working with my buddy Martin, who I started that company with. And so I think that that's maybe people undervalue that. You have a lot of these accelerators where you have really talented people who come together, and then maybe you'll find your co-founder in 2 weeks or something. And I
Yeah.
personally think that that's a little bit of a fallacy, because you need to kind of go through some tough stuff with people, really understand kind of what it's like to work with them, and kind of who your co-founders are is probably the most important thing in reality.
Yeah.
So we really love working together, and we wanted to build a business that enabled people to solve their own problems. And like that's the kind of, it sounds like a really vague, broad thing, but
Hmm.
in the context of kind of what we did at Cognite, which was work with really big companies and help them in their digitalization process. Um, Cognite is a product company that delivered a database, but also in addition to that database, when you're working with big companies, you also have to kind of deliver the value part of it, like what is actually built on top of that database, which is a bunch of
Yeah.
applications. And so seeing those processes, seeing people kind of working in those settings, we saw kind of like the opportunity for and need for people to be able to actually just solve their own problems and build their own tools. So kind of that is part of the core of starting Databutton, or like really the mission part of starting Databutton. And you can see kind of like it took us, we've been through quite a journey. We started in September 2021. It's been 3.5 years, but I would say we're meeting the mark now, which is
That's
cool.
amazing. That is amazing. What is the biggest problem you're solving for your customers?
So the biggest problem is that it kind of depends on where you are in terms of size, right? So a lot of our customers are SMBs. SMBs don't have a really firm definition out in the world. I would describe it being anyone anywhere from like 2 to 500 people in our case. In a lot of cases, they're bigger, in like the definition side of things. If you're 400 people, then the problems that you have are different than if you're two people. But I think the thing that unifies them is that they are now able to create the software that they need to win without extreme costs and failed projects, right? So like at the bigger end, you often end up bringing in a consultancy or an agency that, you know, the project doesn't meet the mark. You end up spending a ton of money, a ton of time, and 80% of those projects fail. Or you're at the bottom end and you can't afford it.
Hmm.
You can't afford having a tech team. You can't afford bringing these people in, and you've been banging your head against the wall using Airtable and Zapier and kind of this mishmash of stuff that doesn't actually get you the tooling that you need to operate and win.
Yeah.
Kind of both of those cases, I think, are tremendous like kind of unlocks.
Now, are your user base, do you find them on the highly technical side, on the pseudo technical side, on the non-technical side? Who's using this? Who can use this?
So our philosophy is to kind of make it as non-tech friendly as possible. The reality is that people who are kind of tool builders today are pseudo technical at least.
Mhm.
So I would say kind of like the core best user group for us are people who are banging their heads against the wall using Airtable and Zapier. So they kind of understand these core concepts, right? So like they understand a little bit about databases because that's what Airtable is. They understand things like APIs because a lot of the time that's what you're connecting in Zapier. So they understand like these bits and pieces, but they're not coders. They don't know how to build an app. They would never use a development environment. They would never work locally using kind of a cursor or a VS Code or what have you. So it's kind of like that's kind of like our sweet spot, I would
Yeah,
say.
very cool. How many users do you guys have using the platform right now?
We have, I think, well, we have 5,000 customers.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
very
then we
cool.
have a mailing list of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
But like that, AI is a hot space, so there's tons and tons of people coming in and out.
Yeah. Now, do you have a really exciting use case or story you can share from one of?
Yeah, I mean, so what ends up happening a lot of the time is that the SMB customers that we have, they have, of course, when you have a business, you already do have a set of tools. You're not starting from nothing, right? But a lot of these tools don't necessarily fit exactly how you want to work. And you need to build kind of supplementary things that kind of solve the problems that you have with those tools today, right? So an example is we have Dom who buys and sells mortgages. So he's like a mortgage note dealer in
Okay.
Texas. What he actually uses, one of the core assets that he has in that process, that he gets a bunch of PDFs that are just like not digitalized at all. So they're like the PDFs that are just images.
Okay.
So it's like that's what he gets from banks. Then he
Like
has to be
someone's
like,
taking a picture from their phone and sending it
yeah,
to him, type of thing.
yeah, exactly, right?
Okay.
And then from there, you have to kind of extract all this information, think to fill out into a CRM that would actually
Mhm.
define the deal, right?
Right.
So today, that's a fully manual process for him. Get a huge PDF of like 38 pages. You just scan through it, pull out the little details that you need to
Yeah.
put into your CRM. So you start up by building out kind of that as an automated thing. So you upload the PDF, extract all the information that you need to put into your CRM. One button, it goes to your CRM.
Yep.
So you started doing that as a Databutton app. Then you started building kind of the full CRM around it to
Yeah. Yeah.
replace the
So
CRM.
he sounds like this person would be non-technical.
Yeah, so he's the person he's an example of somebody who's been bashing his head against the wall using Airtable and Zapier
Yeah.
for forever. He's hired automation consultants to build out like 65 automations in Make
Yep.
to solve a bunch of these cases that kind of work and then don't work a lot of the time,
Mhm.
right? And you spend a ton of money, you kind of are like, this isn't working right now. I have to bring them back in. I have to
Yeah.
bring them back in. I don't really know how to fix this. And part of the nice thing with Databutton is that, you start out by saying what you want to make. It's for people who have an actual case, right? So like you say what you want to make. You can upload you can upload documents like specs or kind of the use case that you have to give more details about what you need.
Yep.
And then after that, it generates a plan. So Databutton, like what you work on together is a plan. So it kind of after you put in your initial kind of needs, it generates a set of tasks that represent kind of the first version of your app. And then you just hit execute on the tasks, and Databutton codes and builds that thing out for you. And
Yeah.
your role as a user is really to give feedback. So you'd be like, okay, task one is done. The app should be able to do this now. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
test the app. Oh, the app works great, or actually, when I click this button, this thing happens. It doesn't work correctly. Let me tell that to Databutton, and then it will update it and fix it for you, right? So you have that kind of constant ability to improve the app, both when it inevitably something stops working, because that's what happens with these things. But also maybe some API changed, maybe something changed in the back end, right? So something stopped working.
Yeah.
But also maybe you want to work a bit differently, uh, like 5 weeks from now.
Hmm.
What are you going to do? And then you actually have the opportunity to go in and change that by talking to Databutton. In other cases, you would have to be like, oh, let's pull in kind of the consultants again, and now
Yeah.
you're in another 6 week project and like this huge thing, right? So
Yeah.
how do you make that happen?
It's interesting. I mean, I feel like I have, my mind is going, and I feel like I have a lot of use cases that are, extremely relevant to this. Just being in the staffing and recruiting technology space, and there's a lot of great tools out there. And there's a tool that can, fit along, in each piece of the life cycle. But each tool, yeah, you need a Zapier connection to start having all of them talk together, the cost of that, the cost of each tool, and then you have this technology sprawl that's going on, and it's kind of crazy. And I'm sure that's very applicable across a lot of different industries where it's, you have these things that are built here, here, and here. And for my business purpose, I just want to use this one thing because this is all I care about right now. And this is where my business is focusing. But this person wants to use it for this, but I have to pay for all these features, even though I'm
Yeah,
only going to use
exactly,
this one
right?
thing, and it's like, it's kind of crazy. So I was thinking, like, if I wanted to, build a simple customer portal for
Yeah.
both my clients who are hiring and candidates who I'm working with, to be able to have this transparent portal, how easy is that would be for me to build using Databutton?
Super easy. I mean, you just go in and describe what you told me, generate a plan, you start working through it, right? And I
Yeah.
think what I think is important is that, a lot of people come in or talk about like extremely advanced cases, which is possible, but in
Hmm.
reality, what you need is these pragmatic solutions, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I'm kind of describing kind of what is that makes you 10% better? What does it make you 20% better?
Yeah.
30% better? Not like let's transform your entire business and like you're gonna do all this crazy stuff. And I mean, eventually you'll get there, right? But I think we really attract kind of those pragmatists that want to improve the way that they work or improve um, kind of the way that they interact with their clients, whatever it may be, right? And I
Yeah.
think um, another example, I guess, in your case or in your business, right, would be just kind of better matching, better
Yeah.
systems for that, better systems for also doing enrichment of like people that are in your roster on like the staffing side, on the client side. There's
Hmm.
so many things you can do, and I'm sure some of the systems support it, but then you have to just keep buying more and more and more and more software, and it's not exactly what you want, right? You
Yeah.
probably have some secret sauce of how you run your business, and you kind of want the software to fit that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the really great tools, like, they're really good, but they're also
Yeah,
really costly. And
yeah,
it's like when
exactly.
you and they charge per seat. So if you're a large organization, especially from a recruiting perspective, and you have 10 people, that's small. 10, if you have 50 people, like, the amount of money you're spending on, an individual seat, it becomes pretty crazy. What about, so like, I build these products, right? Or I build a product, I build these tools. What is the cost of hosting this? For me to host this service, this tool that I'm using internally, is there a lot to worry about from an infrastructure standpoint? Do you help with that? What does that look like?
Like when we started this, it's been so important for us to kind of help with the full life cycle. It's like if you're
Hmm.
a non-technical person and you just have some crap working in your browser and nobody else can use it, like there's absolutely zero value, right? So
Yeah.
we're all about like all the way to value, all the way to getting your users, all the way to helping them and actually changing your business and making it better, right? So we have a one-click deploy that deploys it to a URL that you can set to anybody. You can deploy it to your own domain. So if you just submit like whatever. Any like internal.databutton.com in my case, we can deploy all our internal tools there. If you submit your public URL, you can deploy your tool if you have a public facing product, you can deploy it there. We take care of all of it for you. So it's actually we've invested a lot of energy and time in making that a good system. And what we haven't done a good job of, to be totally honest, is pricing that well. So today, we're a small team. We're 7 people.
Mhm.
Like that's incredibly small in reality, right? 7 people managing like over 5,000 customers and a ton of people coming in every day.
Yeah.
And that means that you have to prioritize like extremely hard. And so while we have deployment, we don't have like what we really want to implement is a pay-as-you-go on the deployment side. So we're going to
Mhm.
separate out the business model when it comes to what do you pay for in terms of like building, what do you pay for in terms of hosting.
Yeah.
But for now, we just charge based on the same credit system that we have for building. But obviously, the credits do something differently. Charge on compute hours, but you don't have to worry about how many people are using it, anything. It's just based on usage. It's just purely based on how much value is your app delivering, basically. That's what you pay for.
Got it. How do you quantify that?
It's just based on usage. So it's based on compute. So it's like, is your app being used by people? Then if it is, then it spins up kind of a workload on a server. So let's say that you have, let's take Dom's app, for example, right? Like
Yeah.
every time you upload a PDF and you click extract, there's some work being done on our servers that actually parses the PDF, extracts a bunch of information, and pushes it somewhere.
Yeah.
That takes about 30 seconds. So that's 30 seconds of work. And for every 30 minutes of work like that, we charge 1 credit.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I thought I saw something where you have a human element to data
Yeah,
button. Can you talk about what that is and how the interface of AI and human and how you're bringing that together?
absolutely. I think so. There's two parts to this. Again, value focus, right? So like we have been extremely serious and taken support like just super seriously as a business. We really care. We want to help people succeed. We're the kind of people that are like the founders have probably done the most support in the history of the business up until 4 in the morning answering customer questions on intercom, like through in-product chat. We really care about that, and a lot of our customers are in the US, so time zones are such that people are cranking away in Data Button at 7 p.m. on the West Coast, and that's 4 a.m. here, and
Yeah.
that's just facts. But so that's one element of it, is just support, community and support, like, and we know that as good as AI is, it's not just about the quality of what's produced. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to. Like your people are not used to making stuff, especially if they're non-technical. And that process, it requires kind of a shoulder to cry on sometimes, or just someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times, just like almost providing our users a little bit of therapy, just to
Mhm.
be like, hey, we're here to listen. What's up? How can we help? Then we also have kind of at the higher tier, we also have the option for kind of us to help you build the app in Data Button. And the reason that exists is that a lot of these small business owners and small business just operators, they come in, they have a bunch of ideas, they want to build things out, and then they're like, wait, I have to run my business. I
Yeah.
can't do this all day.
Yeah.
So it's like, sure, there are people who actually spend 9 hours a day in Data Button, many, but there are many who want to but can't. And I think in reality, then they kind of need another option. And for us, that's just a great way to kind of build a relationship even tighter and help them succeed when actually aren't going to have the time to build out those applications themselves.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I feel like I would fall in that latter bucket, wanting
Yeah.
to jump in and build a lot of cool things
Yeah.
but where do you have the time? Do you see yourself, or do you see Databutton opening like a U.S. West Coast operation? Do you guys think you're going to stay in Norway, in Europe? What are your plans?
I think we've at least talked about opening a US office because so much of our market is there, because we have so many customers in the US. So at the very least, some form of go-to-market team and presence, and possibly on the West Coast, because that's also where a lot of the AI innovation is happening too on the model side. So I can see that happening in the near term, near to midterm for
Yeah.
sure.
Any any happenings, anything that you want to share on future of Databutton, things that are coming out, exciting releases, things that you just released?
Yeah, no, we have a really cool partnership with Google. So Google is currently winning the race when it comes to kind of having the best model when it comes to coding.
Mhm.
So we use a lot of different models, but kind of our core workhorse model, which is the one that produces the code, that's the one that does most of the kind of spends the most time, is most critical in the success of what is created in Databutton. And Google has kind of come out with Gemini Pro 2.5, yeah, even a newer preview version with reasoning. We just released that today, May 7th. I don't know when the podcast comes out, but we just released that today.
Awesome.
We're the only ones in the world that have access to that other than Cursor. So it's like kind of, it's really,
Very
really,
cool.
really, first of all, I think we're really privileged to just kind of work together with them so tightly. And I'm just happy that we can provide our customers with like next level experience, higher quality, cheaper, faster, everything. So that's super cool. We have some really, really, really exciting stuff coming, but it's in the, I would say it's definitely in the phase from a perspective of explaining it on a podcast.
Yeah,
But it will, but it, but
fair
it, but it
enough.
will become very, I would say stay tuned on Data Button channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc., where we'll post some more updates. I think we're gonna start giving some hints soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. With what you see people building using Data Button, do you see your customers leaning more towards tools, or do you see a big need or interest in building agents to, a specific application?
Agents are super, super popular. I think from a trend point of view, especially, um, Data Button is an agent.
Yep.
So we think that that's kind of where things are
Agents
going.
building agents.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Agents building agents is one of our live streams.
Yeah.
It's actually um so one of the things that I would say that um is important with the way that we've built Data Button is that you can build agents, right? Like the reason you can do that is kind of a technical explanation here, but what Data Button is able to create is both the front end and a back end of an application. So that means it creates kind of the part that users interact with the UI, the graphical user interface, but it also creates the back end, which is kind of the workloads of the application. So it's like if you click a button and like I mentioned with the application earlier, kind of if when that button is clicked, what happens? What are the things that need to happen in the back end to actually provide the results of kind of that action? So an example would be like, okay, I want to build a dashboard using 20,000 rows of HubSpot data. How can you do that? Well, your app needs to have a backend. It needs to be able to fetch that data, needs to be able to process it, and needs to be able to present it. So because we have that backend, it's also possible to build agents because agent frameworks and agents also are heavily built in the same language, which is Python. So people do build agents. We also have, now we're getting into the weeds, I would say, from like an AI point of view. It's like if
Sure.
people are not deep in AI, but there's this protocol that Anthropic, the creator of Claude, that they introduced called MCP, Model Context Protocol, which is kind of a default way for agents to talk to other services. And
Hmm.
so we've integrated with that. So if you build an app in Databutton, you can expose it via MCP and you can talk to it using other surfaces like Claude Desktop or Cursor, for example. So like we believe in kind of just being like kind of making sure that we are there where all of the kind of AI advancements are headed
Yeah.
because, things move really fast.
Yeah.
It's I think that like we started building this version of Data Button, which is what I would call an agentic app builder, or like, of course, text to app is kind of like the very, very basic version. And then,
Hmm.
but what you're doing is you're talking to an agent that builds an app. Started building that in October 2023, so a year and a half ago. Back then, the thing produced super bad code. Nothing worked. You had to be a developer to debug it. No, there's absolutely no way like anybody could actually build an app using that unless they were an actual developer. And then AI just got better and better, and suddenly it's possible. And
Yeah.
who knows what the next thing is going to be, right? So we have to kind of just, I think anybody who predicts is maybe just guessing, and maybe they'll be right
Yeah. Yeah.
because a broken clock is right twice a day. But like, I think just the more important thing is kind of moving fast and being on top of it.
Yep. Yeah. So many things. It's very exciting. And, it gets the wheels turning. And I think there's
I
just
hope
so much
so.
opportunity to, when you think about the agent space and for my business as a services company, I'm always about adding
Yeah.
value to our customers, both the candidates and the clients we support. And so figuring out ways where you could build an agent that, helps people along the way that's right there and it's throughout that process, that life cycle. If there was I'll just ask maybe one or two more questions. If there
Sure.
was one agent you could build um, in your life, what would you do? What would you build?
Man, that's a tough question. I think that one thing that I've learned through this entire process is that if you're going to build anything AI related or an agent, well, it's one of two things. Either if it's value focused, it has to be something that you're good at because you're the one who's telling the agent how to act, right?
Yeah,
So like if you don't know anything about it, you probably shouldn't build an agent for it. But like me building like a patent law agent is not gonna help anybody,
right.
for
I'm not trying to
example.
help anybody else. I just want to help myself right
Yeah,
now. Like
exactly.
if I could integrate all of my kids' school apps, their sports apps,
No,
and my
exactly.
my personal calendar together and just tell me where I need to be, that would be amazing. Because it seems like technology sprawl. It's all over the place, apps for
That's fair.
everything,
So
but apps
you're
don't talk.
thinking, yeah, exactly. So it's more like a personal assistant. That's what
Yes,
you want.
that's what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want.
yeah.
Something
You
easy.
wanna you wanna reach out. You wanna be like, hey, where should I be right now? It's like you
Yeah,
should have been to this place 3 hours ago.
yeah. What do I need to
So
wear today?
what do I need to wear today?
Yeah,
Exactly. And it would actually just tell you instead, right? So you wouldn't even have to ask.
yeah.
If you get
Hey,
pushed,
Brian, get your hair cut. It's looking a little long. Okay, it's been 4 months.
it's been 4 months. Yeah, exactly. I think an agent that I would love to have is actually kind of the home kind of the home repair agent.
Yeah,
So I need to redo kind of my deck. It's
yeah.
like the all the wood is like super worn. I just want to build out the agent that will be like, okay, take a photo of this, take a photo of that, I describe where I want to go, creates kind of creates the plan for me, creates like the set of materials that I need,
I love
everything.
this.
Maybe it would be fantastic from an agent point of view. Is like it went in, it ordered everything for me, stuff showed up in my door. Fantastic,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And then it
Push.
integrated with the calendar and said, from this time to this time on Saturday or Sunday, you're booked. You're building a deck,
You're building this thing.
you're building it. Yeah.
No, because that would be super cool, I think. I think that would be nice.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If for me, I think that's the same way. I like to use my hands. I like to build things. And so that would be fantastic. But, it's the planning phase. It's like it's there. I know I want to get it done, but now I have to go like watch a bunch of YouTube or whatever to figure it out. Well, I
Exactly.
appreciate this. Thanks so much. I think this is a lot of fun, and I hope the listeners will find a lot of value and go check you out because I think ultimately everybody has a lot of ideas and a lot of these challenges that people are facing.
Super cool. Thanks for having me on. It was nice chatting.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.